all across the world. And I just thank the internet and thank Zoom that we're even able to do this right now. No, I'm so excited for tonight. And let me just first introduce myself. And I will admit that this is my first talk that I've hosted. So, bear with me as I'll do my best as I can, as we can all. Hey, Andre. Yeah, so I am a product designer. I've been designing for 4 years. Right now, I am at Copperleaf, designing enterprise software for utility companies, trying to help them make better decisions for a better world. So it's quite extensive, it's quite complicated, but it's a lot of fun. On the side, I kind of volunteer with ADPList. I'm an active mentor as well, and I've been doing this since December as well. I also run my own community. It's called Vancouver Design Check-in, where we do kind of bi-weekly hangouts. We just chat about anything that you want to bring, whatever questions that you have, whatever things you want to ponder in life, and you bring whatever you want to bring into it. We do also matchups, one-on-ones, kind of that, coffee chats. We have about 500 members so far. Currently, here's a little fun fact about me that I couldn't speak until I was 4 years old. Feel free to DM me what that means. It is a lengthy story I will not dive into tonight, but it is weird. And I've met some other people who have the same experience with me, which is kind of amazing. So ADPList, just to make sure that ADPList is given a little shout out, is a community based on making genuine connection. Platform where people can find, book, and meet mentors around the world. Our mission is to foster an inclusive space and support network for designers and product managers to come together, learn from each other, and strive to be better. If you haven't had a chance to check us out, feel free to visit adplist.org to get started. We hope you enjoy the session today. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter for latest news. As well, I think you've kind of noticed that we are recording right now. We're actually live on YouTube. If you don't feel like you want to put on your video, feel free to turn it off. This is a safe space. Don't feel pressure to do so whatsoever. But yes, this is recorded. As well, we also really encourage that we want people to engage and participate in the activities coming later on. Because I also believe that whatever value you put into it, you'll get out of it. So if you really want to participate and learn and actually grow and feel, please participate. You don't need to put on your camera. You don't also have to speak out loud, but we highly, highly, highly encourage it. But yeah, please, this is, I can't wait. This is Irina and Cami have such a great event planned out. And, this is just to make sure that there is no judgment, there's no negativity. This is an open space. Bring yourself to the fullest right here, right now. And whatever stays in here lives in here. We're all on our paths and there is zero judgment. And yeah, so let me kind of do one more thing. I know I'm reading off of a script, but bear with me. I am going to take pictures right now of everyone. We do this just because we want to look performance ready, and I got a haircut at a mall, just FYI. Everyone's wondering. So I'll take a picture of everyone right now. So I'm going to start in the first slide. So smile or do whatever you want. Put in, be you. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. First shot. All right. Second page. Look live. Put on your camera if you want to. It's up to you. 3, 2, 1. Love it. All right. Next one. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Even if you don't have your camera, that is okay. No worries. I'm going to take the final picture. Just 1 second.
Okay, Curran wins for faces made during photo ops.
Andre's got one of my favorite ones so far.
Oh, love it.
Yeah. All right, so let me introduce our speakers today. And again, this is scripted a little bit, so bear with me. Cami Travis Groves is a self-employed transformational coach. As a recovering graphic designer, Cami has had 30 years of design experience and has worked with all types of organizations, from academia to agencies, from startups to international nonprofit corporations. Cami is now a transformational coach specifically for creatives, an international speaker, and an author based in Kansas City area. She's also probably best known for her good juju, spreading it wherever she goes. Fun fact, Cami once was interviewed by the BBC program Stormont Today while visiting Northern Ireland. It was kind of an accident. And our next guest is Irina Belova. Irina manages a team of product designers at Clio, a Vancouver-based company on a mission to transform the legal experience for all. She's been working in design for over 15 years, meandering from typesetting novels to wayfinding design in building to UX and product design. Fun fact, Irina is an Australian who doesn't like Vegemite. Huh. Sweet. Okay, let me kind of introduce to what's happening tonight. So ADPList Genius Hours Deep Dive Edition is conversations and insights delving into our most difficult inner workings so that we creative people may grow, heal, and eventually become our best selves. Again, this is live on YouTube, and you can follow us on LinkedIn or and ask questions on ADPList. So here's kind of what's happening tonight. Did you mean to do that? Intentionality for creatives. Are you the driver in your life, or are you just going along for the ride? From how you approach your day to day, to how you format your portfolio, to how you plan your career, intentionality plays a huge role. But how intentional are you actually being? Attendees will learn methods to put to use right away in creating, then living the way they want. And then just to let you guys know how the format today is, Cami and Irina will go through their presentation, and then we'll have Q&A throughout. Don't hold on to your questions. Put them in the chat. I'll collect them as we go, and then I'll save them for the dedicated Q&A about 15-20 minutes at the end. So yeah, please, Cami, if there's nothing else, please get over to you.
Thank you. By the way, everyone, this is Jarell. He didn't say his name. This is Jarell Alvarez, and he's amazing stepping in.
Yes.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's kick it right off. What does intentionality even mean? Irina, what is intentionality for you?
Well, perfect question for a perfect conversation. I just need to close this chat because it's too awesome. I could probably spend all day in this chat. And I just want to say one more thing, being intentional about the fact that as I live in a loft, it's awesome, but it means that at some point my partner's going to walk in the door. Don't worry, I warned him ahead of time and he will be wearing pants. So I don't want to blow my background. I just want to, I want you to see me in reality. So just that little PSA. I think intentionality to me is basically thinking about your situation, thinking about your current situation, thinking about your next step, and getting really clear with yourself around what you want it to be, what that could look like, and how to approach it. Kind of doing things because you mean to do them, rather than kind of just trying something and hoping for the best. And there's nothing wrong with trying something and hoping for the best. I've kind of half of my career is based on that method of doing things. But I think today we want to take a look at what intentionality means. What about you?
Awesome. For me, it's being aware of what my daily choices are. And instead of just dealing with whatever comes my way, actually aiming myself toward what I really, really want. And it takes a little bit to decide what I want. I mean, when I was 21, did I know what I want? Only kind of. So it takes a little bit of introspection, looking inward, because all the answers that you seek are in here. About what it is that you want to do in your life. And then once you get a direction, it's choosing day to day, moment to moment, little tiny things, baby steps. Y'all know I'm a big proponent for baby steps, headed towards the direction of your career. Yeah. So no longer a passenger, but maybe a creator or a designer of your life. Yeah. So as we move through this, our topic today of intentionality, understand that I'm an opinion of one, Irina is an opinion of one, and feel free to disregard. If what we say doesn't agree with your sense of what is right for you, ignore us. No harm, no foul.
And the
Okay.
title Genius Hour does not refer to me, by the way.
We as a collective are geniuses, I think.
Yes, all of us together.
Yes, we as a community, definitely. Okay, so we're going to do this in 3 parts. We're going to do micro, which is a micro level, which is in here. We're going to do a meso level, which is right in between. And then we're going to do a macro level, which is big distance stuff, 30,000 foot view. So the first thing we're going to do is start with an activity, because why not? Activities are fun. So grab a piece of paper, grab something to write with. You're going to make a list of everything you do in an average day. Okay, you're making a list in one column, and then there's going to be reasons you do everything, and you're going to put those in the next column. And I'll give you some examples. I wake up at 7:20 in the morning, and I wake up every day at 7:20 because I don't like to sleep in on weekends because it gives me jet lag. That is one gift I give myself, is regular sleep. So the reason I get up at 7:20 is because I like getting up at the same time every day, and that's my reason. I have breakfast. Why? Because I'm hungry. I do some work. Why? Because I want to make some money. So think about what you're doing, whether that's, having coffee first thing. Why do you have coffee? You need caffeine. Why do you need caffeine? That's a good question. So think about everything that you've done in an average week. You don't have to write down everything, but just write down some of the things that you do in an average week. Do you exercise? Write that down. Do you veg out on Netflix? Write that down. I have a guilty pleasure. I'm rewatching Lucifer because why not? Write down all the things that come to mind. Okay. Now, some of those reasons are subconscious, and being intentional about your reasons means you're no longer on autopilot. You're choosing what to do and why. And you can keep writing as we go. So, of these activities that you wrote down, which ones did you do because you always do them? Like, I do this every day because I always do it. I don't think about doing it. Jarell, I'm going to throw you under the bus for this one. What is an activity that you do because you always do it?
Mine is, well, there's 2. One is meditation before I go to bed. That one took a while to learn how to do and feel like I want to do. Another one is reading when I wake up.
Oh, okay. I do them in the reverse order. How interesting.
I used to when I was younger, I used to read before I slept for at least 30 minutes, and I would have it perfectly timed, and I would, have everything locked and loaded. And now it's kind of, I get a little bit more tired at night, so I feel like I'm going to sleep a lot sooner, and I want to pay attention to it more.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, Irina, which activities on your list do you do just because you want to unwind and you like being distracted for a little bit?
I don't have any like that on my list. Yeah, which doesn't mean they're not there. I was just a little selective with my list. But maybe one that I'll talk about, which is something that I've come back to as lockdowns have kind of eased up in Vancouver. I've gone back to pottery class, and as someone who spends all day every day in front of a computer, and as I mentioned, live in the loft where I can't not see my computer except for when I'm in the bathroom. connecting with my hands and doing something with my hands has been so therapeutic for me. So I think it is something that I just do for fun, because I'm by no means going to be a ceramicist or a potter, but it's also, I think, very grounding and brings me a lot of benefits.
Nice, nice. So as you look at your list of activities that you wrote down, be aware of which ones you do because you always do them, which ones you do because you want to distract yourself, which ones light you up, which ones bring you joy, which ones kind of get you into that flow state. Which one of your activities, or which ones, give you energy? Which ones leave you feeling kind of drained? If you're feeling drained at the end of the day, just a side note, plan for and be intentional about doing the things that bring you energy. How many things on your list are self-care? And by self-care, I'll show you exactly what I mean. This is what I mean by self-care. This yellow part, that you are taking care of yourself physically, sleep, food, movement, emotionally, trusting yourself, feeling everything you're feeling, allowing yourself to feel them, giving yourself creative expression outside of work. That part's important. Giving yourself whatever you feel is spiritual, whether it's stillness or going within, and self-talk, mental stuff, and curiosity-led learning. All of these things. And feel free to take a screenshot, because self-care is super important. And guys, I want to make a special note here. Guys are not immune to self-care. Self-care is super. As a matter of fact, Jarell, do you practice any self-care? I mean, meditation, yes, is fantastic. What other self-care do you do by chance?
Lately, I was gonna add to my list there, but walking for half an hour at the end of the day, at the start of the day and the end of the day, and really talking to myself and being willing to absorb what's happened and process things and be my own cheerleader when I need to, or dig up dirt in the back of my mind that I'm avoiding, because I feel like, especially on the weekends, I feel kind of lethargic and I can easily just veg out, and it doesn't feel as productive as just like kind of working through whatever I need to go through. And so that's where my walks kind of kick in as well. So some self-care is like, I love doing my what's it called, skincare routine at the beginning of every day and night. Yes. And learn how to do that. Oh, I absolutely love it. And I try to promote a lot of this to my friend group and just try to cheerlead them as well and say, hey, you can be a better person. You can dress better. You can look better. And I want to be here for you, even if you make an attempt.
Yep. That self-care is important because it's not vain. It's not narcissistic. It's really taking the time to take care of yourself. Thank you, Jarell. Thank you for sharing. Mm-hmm. Of your activities that you wrote down, which ones move you closer to your big, juicy goals? Do you have big, juicy goals? If you don't, talk to an ADPList mentor. I'm sure we can help you with that. If your activities, if none of your weekly activities move you closer to your goal, be intentional. Add some things in there that actually will move you towards those goals. A good way to judge that is ask yourself which activities in your week required courage. If your activities required courage, they're harder and they're probably the ones that are moving the needle for you. They're also the ones that build confidence. The harder it is that something that you attempt, the more confidence you build. So just think about that. So being intentional with your day-to-day activities means, like I said, you're moving away from being on autopilot. You're choosing what you do and why, and you get to choose. Noticing that you're doing things that get you another step closer to being the driver in your life. Okay. So that, in a nutshell, is intentionality at a micro level. So let's move on to the middle level or meso level.
Cami, can I just add one little note to that section?
Yes.
If anybody found that kind of a challenge to write down all the stuff you did, like myself, because I totally found that a challenge. Spend the next day just tracking these activities and then just taking little notes after each one. Like, how do you feel? Like, are you energized? Are you drained? What time of day is it? Make a note of that and start kind of taking stock of what it is you do with your time and what should you be doing with your time.
That's a great addition. Thank you, Irina. Awesome. So moving on to a meso level, how can you be intentional about what work goes into your portfolio or how you describe the work in your portfolio? Irina, have you got something to add to that?
Yeah, I do. And just to give some context about where I'm coming from, the portfolios that I mainly see and review are for product designers, UX designers, digital design work. So that's kind of the context I'm coming to this question from. And I think my biggest piece of advice would be, particularly for those that are brand new to the career, maybe you've done a course, a boot camp, something like that. I know you're really eager to show off your skills and everything you've learned in the course, but don't put the whole kitchen sink into your case study. Because imagine, you have a bunch of folks that you graduated with, you all learned the same process, you all put the same process in your case study. It means a bunch of the same portfolios. So what I would suggest is be really intentional about what you want to highlight, what skills you want to highlight with each project. And the way that I recommend folks do this is tell the story of each project. And I'm suggesting, like, literally before you start gathering all your assets together into whatever format you want to show it in, like, get a piece of paper and a pen and write down the story of exactly what happened in this project and find where are those key moments of conflict? When did you learn something new and go in a completely different direction? Because that's the stuff that employers want to see. They want to know, how do you deal with that messiness? And I have a bit of a visual to share. Let me just share my screen.
It's important that people understand how you think. I think that's a good thing to point out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most folks would have some familiarity with the double diamond design process, which is, the ideal that we all strive for. But the reality is that really it's more like this. Like, things go all over the place, things go sideways. You work with a bunch of different people, you have conflict with those people, you hate your product manager, you want to stab your engineer. Like, I hope that's not what's happening, but please talk about all of that messy stuff and talk about the pivots, the mistakes, the backtracks, and talk about what you've learned. I'm really loving seeing more and more folks put, like, their lessons and what I would do next time as part of their case study. That really shows me that you're thoughtful, shows me, you may not have a ton of experience, but you are thinking about how you'll approach the stuff next time. And that's really valuable.
I agree.
Yeah.
Showing people how you think is, even in graphic design, I want to see what the constraints were. I want to see what it started with and what the iterations were and how it ended and all the messiness. I want to know how people think so that in any given scenario, I can say, all right, if they think like this, then they're going to be perfect for this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Okay. How do you decide which projects to show? How can you be intentional about which projects and how many?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give the most frustrating answer to any question, which is, it depends. And what I would do is, like, I'm going to give you a vague answer, which is think about your audience. And I'm going to give you a bit of a specific answer, which is look at the job description. The job description for the the role that you're applying for. Take a look at what are they emphasizing? Are they looking for someone who's awesome at research? Are they looking for someone who's going to be doing like the very specific interaction design, UI design, and then have a few different projects that highlight the various areas of your process. Make sure, actually, one tip that I would love everyone to take away is in your portfolio website or in your portfolio, whatever it is, when you have the menu that's like, oh, I've done this project or this project or that project, tell me what skill you want to highlight with that project. Because otherwise, like, I would love to look at the whole thing, but I'm probably not going to. And I'm probably going to be looking at more of the thing than the next person. So make sure you specify, okay, with this project, I'm going to highlight my UX research. I'm going to highlight interviewing. I'm going to highlight usability testing. I'm going to highlight how I work with the engineering team. In this project, it's something else. And then if you have like a few different modules, I'm not saying that you should recreate your portfolio every time you apply for a job. That just doesn't make any sense. But if you kind of have like a bit of a modular approach to it, you could probably reorder them a little bit based on what you see in the job description and what you understand that this particular company is looking for, or maybe remove some or add some, if that makes sense.
Yep. Customize. Well, and I love the idea of each project highlighting a different skill set.
Yeah, like I think what I often see.
Viewer, sorry, that would save me as a viewer lots of time in okay, I'm not going to look into the weeds and all this. This is going to highlight this. All right, let me see that specific detail about this project.
Yeah, and I think that can get away from the huge case study that takes a minute to scroll through and people get overwhelmed by, because you don't need to show the whole thing end to end. You can just focus on, okay, this is the research. I think it is important always to show the so what of every project. Like, did it see the light of day? Did it get built? Like, did you validate? Did you see the change that you wanted to see in the world by building this? But yeah, I think you can be a little bit more curated in terms of how you show your work.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to also add to this is that I got some really great advice from my friend Max. If you say that you're a product designer, make sure that all of your work falls in line with product. And if you're showing off product design, make sure that you can kind of tell all the different branches of product design, right? Because there's visual design, there's interaction design, there's many different types of ways that you can still show product design. And if you're part of that company, you can still show different projects, very curated in that kind of condensed format towards that exact skill that you want to promote under the bubble of who you are and what you're targeting.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Any other tidbits either one of you want to add, or anybody else want to add about being intentional about your presenting your work? Anything in the chat? I mean, I haven't had it open.
Yeah, there was one I can bring up. How often do you read a role description and you're still asking yourself, what exactly are they looking for?
Sorry, is the question how often that happens? Oh, I see. You maybe if I understand this question correctly, it's more like these people are probably looking for a unicorn. Is that kind of what Tim's asking? Yeah. And like, I think reading a job description can kind of tell you about the design maturity of an organization. And you might want to avoid some places because of this very reason, Tim. Yeah, I won't go too far down that rabbit hole for fear of getting myself in trouble. But
unless you really enjoy educating your workplace about the value of what it is you're doing and how it needs to be separated, or how it needs to be treated. If you really get into increasing the organization's design maturity, then go for it. If that gives you hives, then run away.
Yeah, +1 to that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of intentionality specifically for this group at a meso level. So let's go macro level. Let's talk about intentionality in your career. This is the big 30,000 foot view. And I get a lot of my mentees are asking, how do I know what it is what if I start down this road and I don't like it? And I say, great, then that means you know you don't like it and you haven't wasted much time. If you actually have no idea, talk to some people, start job shadowing, virtually job shadowing, like interviewing other people. Like, I think you do what I want to do. How did you get there? What do you love about your job? What do you hate about your job? ADPList has got at least two, probably 12 by now, but excellent YouTube videos about networking on LinkedIn. And I think that's a really great place to start about understanding what kind of tool LinkedIn can be. But then let's talk a little bit also about, okay, so you've done all your job applying, or you've done all your networking, and you've gotten the interview and they offer you a role. Now what? But if it's the first role you've been offered, you should take it, right? Or no? How do you know? That's a really good question. Either one of you want to chime in?
I mean, I think what'll really help you is going back to what we talked about at the beginning of this hour, which is understanding like what kinds of activities, what kinds of tasks you really love doing. I think if this is your first design career or design role, I'd probably say go for it, because regardless of whether you love it or hate it, I think you mentioned this already, but like knowing what you hate doing is as valuable as knowing what you love doing. Exactly. So if you can like quickly, figure that out and bounce to the next thing, that's freaking awesome. Mm-hmm. But I think like when you're a little bit further along in your career, I think that's when really getting clear on, okay, what part of this stuff do I really enjoy? Mm-hmm. I think, at a certain point, you're going to have to ask, like, do I want to continue and be like a really top level individual contributor, or do I want to get into people management, which I learned the hard way is like a completely different job. Yes. And often people kind of get thrown into it by being like, oh, you're good at this thing, you can manage others to do this thing.
It's not a natural progression. And
it's not a natural progression.
In graphic design, a lot of people are very, they're introverted. They suffer from imposter syndrome. They feel like, okay, finally I can do my craft well. And then they get promoted and suddenly they have to manage people. And those are two totally different skill sets. It's also important to understand that whatever it is that you do, you need to love the process and not necessarily the end outcome. And I ran into this a lot in my early career, that I wanted the design to look just so. I wanted this baby that I'm creating to be just so. And ultimately, I was not responsible for the end product, it was somebody else's approval or rejection that it would rely on. And if they came back to me and said, we need to change this, I was heartbroken because I so identified with this thing that I was making. And a valuable lesson that I learned the hard way, I think I learned everything the hard way, is to understand, if you love the process, if you love the act of doing the thing that you do, and the end result is not in your control, and somebody says, okay, we need to tweak this, and you go back and do it again, instead of saying, oh, that's awful, you say, yay, I get to do the thing I love some more. And it makes a world of difference in your job satisfaction, in your career satisfaction. And that kind of taking a step back and looking at your career path and understanding that if you love the process, you'll be happier. Happier people are more successful. Happier people make more money. They're healthier and they live an average of 10 years longer. So it really behooves you to understand what gives you energy, what makes you happy, what things you actually enjoy doing. So go out and test everything, right? That was a soapbox, wasn't it? All right, so there's a decision grid that I made that totally helps me when I'm asking myself, okay, should I do this thing? Well, should I do that thing? And I come across this grid. Say, for example, should I accept this job offer? And you fill this out. What's the best thing that can happen if you do accept the job? What's the best thing that can happen if you don't? What's the worst thing that can happen if you do accept the job? And what's the worst thing that can happen if you don't? And you kind of just do a brain dump. No one else is valuing the things that are coming out of your head. And as you put them down on paper, they become much clearer. And one of these 4 quadrants is going to be very, very obvious which one is more important and what your course of action should be. Because all things are not equal. I mean, it's all in there. All right. Hopefully that's
Amy, I think Karen just threw some shade at you. He was likening that to Microsoft Windows.
Oh, it does. You know what? So be it. Those are my brand colors, not Microsoft.
It just worked out.
Worked out.
I would love to add a little bit to this, is that I do trust my gut, but that has to get a lot of rejection and a lot of experience from learning how to trust it. And I always do this, but I compare it to dating, where you have red flags when you're in the process of interviewing, just like you have with dating, and you can just feel how you felt afterwards, after interviews. How did they make you feel? Did they say anything that made you say, ooh, did they grit your teeth? Did the questions that they ask make sense? Do they seem like they know design? Is there going to be battles that you can foresee later? Are you going to be teaching yourself most of the time? If you're willing to do that, then you're going to have to accept that that's the job. But you can get all that info before you accept your role, because you have the most power before you cross that dotted line, the signature. And you can do whatever you want from then.
Yep. Yeah. Jarell, I think that's a great point that you bring up, to do trust your gut and listen. If you've been through any one-on-one sessions with me, I have you listen to your heart and listen to your brain, because both have neural cells just like your brain does. They're actually capable of thinking. And if you slow down and be intentional and actually listen to them, you'll get more information than if you just rely on your brain and on your logic side. So that's a good point, Jarell.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing up that point. And I think there's so much signal that you can get from the interview about whether or not you want to work at this place. It's not you just jumping through the hoops. I think, like you said, like what is their design maturity? What is their vision for design of the organization? Grill whoever will be your manager, like what is their career progression look like? What is that framework? Does it exist? If you're talking to a number of different people, ask them the same question. See if the answers are consistent, particularly stuff like, product strategy and business strategy. If you talk to 4 different people and they have 4 different opinions, there's probably like a bit of work the company needs to do around figuring out where it is they're going. And I think those are some really good signals you can get from the interview for sure.
I'd love to ask, what is their favorite thing about working at that place? Because then you can really gauge how they answer it. And I'm always listening to how they answer it and their enthusiasm behind it. Whenever I'm in interviews, I basically black out. Like, I'm always trying to think of how I feel during it. I don't know what I say. I don't know what questions they ask me. I'm always asking myself, how did that go? Okay, well, did I say everything I wanted to say during that interview? Then you did well.
Nice.
I think it's
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's also great to ask, what sucks? What's your number one challenge right now? And watch them squirm a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's important to just think, would I enjoy working with these people 40 hours a week? Do I actually like them? Be intentional about it. You don't have to take the first job that comes your way. How about, I know a lot of my mentees ask, well, especially ones that are just recent graduates, I don't know if I should work at an agency or a nonprofit, or most all of them say they want to make a difference. Most all of them are exceedingly empathetic. I think the entire field of UX design just breeds and attracts empathetic people. And they don't want to work for organizations that whose vision does not align with their own. But what about should it be an in-house? Should it be corporate? Should it be an agency? Should it be a big company or a small company or something in between?
Mm-hmm.
I get asked that a lot. And again, ADPList has got some great resources for that. And I'm actually going to put one in the chat here. This is one that came up, and I think it was either Grace or Winona. Somebody put this in our group and said, oh yeah, this is the one. It's a great resource. Like, talk to people who have been in agencies, ask them what's the worst thing about being in an agency? What's the best thing about working in an agency? And make sure you ask more than one person, because there are a lot of people who love agencies. I personally can't stand them. They're not for me. I'm not wired for agencies, but everybody's different. So yeah, and there's lots of opinions there. Gather as many as you can about that. You guys want to add anything about kind of company or size of company? Or
Yeah.
I mean, oh, go ahead.
Okay. Just quickly. Usually I start off with an agency, and so it was good to get that kind of experience at the first get-go, but I didn't really know my values. And when I was unexpectedly laid off from that role, I had to really dig into my values, and I knew that I wanted to try something different. I knew that I also had the experience background to try something different, even though it was not necessarily in my job title. So I rearranged my job title. I rearranged what I knew. I fixed it towards more UX rather than visual, and you're allowed to do that. And so I went with the company that I knew that could take me to the next level, that can have mentorships, that has that the design process embedded into it with a director as well. The director was a key element. And so that was the one that made me say yes.
Marina,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, try it all. Like, agency is going to give you a ton of different types of experiences, but you're not going to be able to go very deep. So, hey, maybe your attention span isn't so great. This is perfect for you. Also, if you're new in your career, an agency will give you that breadth of experience really quickly. In-house, you're more likely going to be able to spend a long time on a problem and be able to go really deep. If it's a small shop, you're likely going to have to do a bunch of different things. So again, try new stuff. If it's a place that's a bit bigger, there's probably going to be a bigger design team that you can learn from and get mentored by. So think about all of those factors and which ones are important to you.
Yep. I would say if you love wearing lots and lots of different hats, then a smaller organization or even freelancing is for you if you like doing lots of different things. But if you like doing your craft and only your craft, the bigger the organization, the better chance that you have of doing just your craft. All right. How about salary requirements? Is there a way to be intentional about salary requirements?
Yes. And this is I think this is a fun question. And I think there's a few parts to it. I think on the one hand, you need to understand, okay, like, how much money do I need to live? Like, take stock of like your rent, your commitments, how much money you want to put aside for retirement, all of that fun stuff. I think personally, and I don't know about other folks, but like up until very recently, I kind of went through my life thinking like, well, more is better, right? Like, I'd change companies, I just get more money. Well, I think there's a way to do better than that. Just first of all, like have that number in your head, like this is how much I need, and then be able to really articulate well, what are you worth? So do some research around like what others in your position with your level of experience are making in your market. And then I think, once you do enter that negotiation stage, remember that like the salary is not the only lever you have to pull here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what is important to you? Is it literally just being able to bring that money in at the end of the pay cycle? Is it more vacation? Something about better benefits, more equity? Cami, you and I talked about like, is there a title that comes into play that suddenly makes the offer more enticing?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a few different levers that you can pull in this process.
Definitely. And if the work is important to you, if the organization is doing the work that really hits home for you, think about how satisfied would I be at the end of the day knowing that I did my part to move the needle on this particular cause. And you may realize, you know what, the money's not everything. I mean, I need, this is what I need to, this is my standard. And it doesn't need to be a lot more than that if I know I am making a big difference for the people whose lives are being affected. If on the other hand, you're using it as a stepping stone, you might say, you know what, since I'm the only UX researcher here, and I had this conversation earlier with one of my mentees, if I'm going to be the only UX researcher here, instead of being a junior researcher or a senior researcher, can I be research director, UX research director? And knowing that it might be a superfluous title, but boy, does that look good on a resume later on. Like, okay, I'm willing to work for pennies, but here's the deal. I would like a better title or an opportunity to have a better title once I show myself, prove myself. So there's additional resources here. I've got 3. I'm going to plug all 3 into the chat.
Let's add one more thing. Remember, you can leave the job if you want to. You can go somewhere else. And if you're working there and you're not satisfied, you can also interview to other companies. You're not tied down. You're not chained. They don't own you, right?
Yeah. And you are not your work. That's another important thing I wanted to bring up, that if you make something and somebody goes, ugh, no, they're saying ugh to the work and not to you. So please don't take it personally. Don't think they're saying that about you. Separate yourself from the work. So 3 different things, 3 different links on there. One UX design specific salary negotiation, one from Adobe, and one is a Medium article. And all 3 of those are really good.
Jarell, I love what you posted in the chat around asking recruiters, what's your budget? I'm curious around how that experience has gone. Like I think somebody asked, at what point in the conversation do you bring it up? How do people react when you throw that to them?
I love it. I love doing it, and it puts them on their heels because you know your worth, and you really show that you know your worth when you say, what is your budget? Because recruiters have a budget. And so when I ask them, 9 out of 10 times they'll say like, oh, it's maybe a range from here to here, or it is this much. And then I can say, 10,000, 15,000 above them. And so they're like, oh, okay. But that's usually at the start. That's with the recruiter, right? And then at the end, that's when you kind of play the negotiation game. But at least you know.
Yeah, start high.
Yeah, start high. And you're not giving your cards away. You're not saying, oh, $50,000 when this role is 110 and you just played your cards.
Yep. And even in the freelance world, when somebody says they don't have a budget, there's always a budget. There's always a budget. Oh, yeah. So I don't know how many times I've said to freelance clients when they say, oh, there's no budget. And I say, okay, so if I said I want $100,000 for this logo, there's no budget and that would be okay. And they're like, oh, no. I was like, oh, so there is a budget. Okay, so what number would be a little bit closer to reality? But I've started so high that they'll go higher than if I say, is it $100? Is it $1,000? So I start exceedingly high just to just to set the stage a little better, it's called priming, and it's science-based, you know me, science.
Yeah. And I think if they come back to you with, well, it depends on your level of experience, come back to them with, cool, what's the range? They're going to have a very explicit range. There's going to be a minimum and a maximum. And, you know, if they refuse to tell you, don't tell them either. Or maybe say like, hey, like, this isn't going to work out.
So you're being intentional about articulating your value during the interview with the company, and it's not necessarily your personal value, but the value of the thing that you do for them. And then you can, this kind of ties nicely back into the micro level, that once you are comfortable, you know your worth, you know that in that circle of self-care that you come first, and then your loved ones, and then the paying work, and that you're not willing to sacrifice your well-being for any amount of money. So that kind of confidence comes from knowing yourself, knowing your inner landscape, knowing the thing not only that you bring to the table, but you as a human being are not to be shortchanged. Even if you're just starting out, you still have value. So anything else you want to add to that, Irina or Jarell?
I think.
Yeah. Oh, no, Irina, go.
I was just going to talk about something that you mentioned earlier, Cami, and I think something that could come up when you're trying to think about what value it is that you do provide, which is everyone's favorite friend, imposter syndrome. And I've kind of taken a slightly different approach to this, because it's something that I've thought about for quite a lot. And my approach is name it, acknowledge that it exists, and then just set it aside and never talk about it again. I think we generally give imposter syndrome too much airspace, and I know that I'm the one that actually brought it up, so that's kind of ironic. But I think the more we talk about it and the more we kind of languish in it, I don't think it's actually serving us that well. And so my new technique is like, if I'm worried that I'm not doing a good job at something or I'm failing, I'm going to ask for signal to show me whether or not the thing that's niggling at me saying, hey, you're not good enough, whether that has any validity. So I'll talk to my manager, I'll talk to my peers, I'll talk to, you know, if I'm looking for a new role, I'm going to talk to those folks that do that job and get their feedback and critique. Don't let what's in your head hold you back, basically.
Yeah. And
those stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah. When you get something out of your head, it's a whole lot less scary. It's a whole lot less significant when you say something out loud. By hiding it and trying to squelch it, you're giving it more power. And we are not our thoughts. If you have a thought that says, I'm not good enough, or I'm just winging it and somebody's going to find out, that's a thought. That's not you. You are the thinker of the thought. I'm going to share my screen one more time, because why not? So in this diagram, you're at the center. You have the thought creates the emotions, the emotion drives your behaviors create your situation. If you're not in a situation that you're enjoying, if your situation isn't working for you, you got to back it up. You got to behave differently. Well, how do you behave differently? You got to feel differently. How are you going to feel differently? You got to think differently. And by thinking differently, you have to actually pause long enough to observe your thoughts and realize that you are not your thoughts any more than you are your elbow. That you are the thinker of the thought, the creator of the thought, the observer of the thought. And if those thoughts aren't serving you, chuck them. Get rid of those. Get new ones. All right. Feel like we covered lots of ground. So this is a perfect time to think about what our next looks like. And Irina brought up a great point that if you think of your life as being an experiment, or this is all just a beta test, this is beta phase, it takes so much pressure off of you to get it right or to get it perfect the first time. And living life in beta, thank you, Brene Brown, we love her. That is a real nugget of wisdom that if you can internalize, Like, this is all a beta test. Everything you're doing is in beta, and you can reiterate over and over and over and over. You don't ever have to get it perfect, because being humans, kind of like Irina's diagram, being human is just as messy. So with that, are there any questions? I want to open it up. Jarell, have you grabbed some questions from the chat? Anybody's got anything they want to add?
There's lots of good questions. I've got 5 so far, but I think we have some more time if anyone pops up while we're doing this. But here's one. How do you reconcile responsibilities to yourself, responsibilities to others, in brackets, family or community?
I think that diagram that I showed earlier about the needs of yourself have to come first.
Mm-hmm.
All of these pieces need to come first, and then you have a greater capacity to take care of your loved ones. And then you have a greater capacity to do better paying work. And all of those things then support your core. And then outside of that, that's your community, that's your volunteer work, that's your mentoring with ADPList, that's your things you do because it makes you feel good. But that self has to come first. Your core has to be full. Like, when you're drained. Say, you gave all your attention to, your sick siblings, or you've got somebody you're taking care of, and you show up to work Monday and you're drained. You don't do as good a job. You can't take care of your loved ones if you're up in the middle of the night with them over and over again. You can't take care of them as well as if you had a good night's sleep. You got to put yourself first. Hopefully that answers that question.
And I'll touch on this, is that there's a lot of trial and error that I've done in my day-to-day, just to kind of get it right. And I think the pandemic kind of threw that on a loop, but it took me a long time to start caring about myself again, and to make sure that my day-to-day reflects that. I think that was the biggest key.
Yeah. And it once you start with that core, then everything else benefits.
Yep. The habitual habits, the healthy habits, it you don't think about it anymore, and it doesn't become hard, and it just becomes easy. And once that becomes easy, now you're looking for more challenges, and now you're able to extend slowly and surely to help more people.
Yep.
And something that I've noticed actually is, I don't know if others can relate, but when those habits start to drop off, that's when I know something's up and I need to pay closer attention. Like, maybe I'll stop doing yoga in the morning, or I want to sleep in for a little bit longer. I'm like, okay, what's going on for me? What do I do about it? Do I book an appointment with my therapist? Do I have a conversation with my manager? Like, what do I take some time off? That's been really helpful.
Yeah, I think one of the gifts that 2020 brought is that awareness to everyone's mental health, that it's okay to take care of yourself first, and it's okay to talk about. And especially if you're neurodiverse, it's okay to say, I got to put me first. Yeah. All right, Jarell, any other questions?
Yeah, of course. So here's another one. When you're in a creative rut and you're lacking motivation to start a personal project, an example, graphic, UX, web, what are some of the things you do to inspire yourself or get your motivation going?
Ooh, self-care. Easy. If there's something blocking you, it's usually, there's another way around getting it out. If you're blocked with UX design, then try dancing. If you are trying to come up with a logo design, try singing, or try jazzercise, or anything that moves your body differently to get your neural cells all fired up in a different way. Like, you're totally circumventing the obstacle, and you throw your brain for a loop, and your brain is going, wait, new things, new neural input. Wait, what? Yeah.
I love that answer. And I wonder if like, when you have all your best ideas in the shower, whether that's like a mini version of that, where like,
yeah,
okay, I'm in a completely different environment, my shower, I can think about these problems differently.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Or even like doing something that you normally do, but do it in a different way. So like brush your teeth with your left hand as you're trying to think of this problem. And your brain is just going to wait, what? Huh? What? And some new ideas come. Yeah. Anything that you can do different.
Yeah, my subconscious goes on like a whole tangent when I'm washing dishes. That's like where I have some of the most aha moments. When I'm about to sleep, I need to write it down before I go to sleep, and then my mind's clear.
Yep.
Or when I'm walking, that's when I'm like, okay, I think I'm listening to this podcast enough, or like I think this music's not really helping me jog some memory because I feel like this lingering thing in the back of my head, and I don't know why. I'm gonna remove it and then just see what is going on here. What do I need to like address? Are you okay? And then I just kind of let the noise and let myself kind of guide myself, I guess.
Yep. And this is my go-to crayons in my coloring book. It's just, I get it out. 21 minutes in a box of crayons and I'm good. All right. What are the questions we got?
Yeah, of course. How do you balance being intentional, but still being open to change and prepared to adapt?
Okay. So I want to address the word balance here because balance implies everything's in stasis and everything is equal. And that's never the case. I want to suggest that we think about harmony instead, because harmony means you're being flexible, you're resilient, that one thing is going to take priority over another at certain times, and it's going to all even itself out in the wash. You guys want to add to that?
No, I really like the I guess I don't know if rejection is too strong a word, but of the idea of balance as something that you reach. It's more about the constant state of, I guess maybe balancing is even like we're always doing that and trying to do that, but it's never something that is a final destination. I really like that.
Yeah.
You're seeking for harmony. And there's actually another level you can go down below that too, is sometimes it's hard to know what, like if you're writing a song, okay, what are the notes that make this harmony? And if you don't know, okay, how do I harmonize this particular hairball? Think, okay, what would love do? Because when you seek love, harmony can't help but follow. So there's always a way around, through, over, under, whatever. And love is not going to steer you wrong. If you start, getting in there with fear almost never serves your higher purpose unless you're like running away from a tiger or something.
Yeah. I think acknowledging if you are off balance, that you are off balance, and really accepting that. And I always and it took a while because my parents had that kind of, oh, you got to always be positive. And then I'd ask why, or like I'd try to be like, well, I don't feel positive right now. How do I feel positive? But they don't have the answer. And I eventually kind of work towards it. Things just kind of naturally work itself out. And I've learned to lean into those kind of high pressured kind of situations. And I know that tide will roll over, and I know that there will always be another sunny day. There's always like a greener grass on the other side eventually, but you just kind of have to sometimes not fight the wave, but let the wave kind of take you, and acknowledge the wave and love the wave.
Yes, what a great way to put it. Thank you. And Rebecca, I totally agree. Harmony requires listening. Absolutely. All right. Other questions?
Yeah. What was the most valuable lesson or enjoyable experience that both of you have learned at your first role as a UX designer or graphic designer?
I can answer that. So like a lot of people, UX design was not my first career. And when I was going into it, I was thinking, I'm going to throw my history in the trash. That Irene is gone. I'm now a UX designer. And actually, I think my lesson that I learned was that actually all of that other stuff makes me the UX designer that I am. All of that context, all of that experience. And so I think like if you do have a previous life, lean into that, make the most of it. It'll make you better.
I agree. I agree. I think you've perfectly answered that. I don't think I need to add to that at all. All right, more questions, Joe?
Yes, just typing this out. Yeah, this is and I'm gonna add on to that a little bit, is that yeah, acknowledging your background is super crucial because that's who you are and that's really the makeup of who you are. When I had my first role, I learned that it was a visual designer, but I always saw myself as a UX designer. I did everything to be a UX designer outside and in the role and take any opportunity I can get to be a UX designer, so that I kept calling myself a UX designer, and it just flows through you in every core, and you have that kind of goal. And if you have that goal, you're honestly always going to, your brain, your subconscious, the universe somehow aligns things towards that goal because you're thinking about it. You're conscious about it, and you want that.
There's some science behind that, kind of like the science behind affirmations. If your previous way of thinking is kind of a rut and you want to bust out of that and think a new way, like I'm no longer going to be an accountant, I want to be a UX designer. You start putting that thought on repeat. You put Post-it notes all over your living space, in your car, wherever. And as you see that note, you actually allow yourself to really think that, you start imagining it, and your brain actually starts to rewire so that when those opportunities come, you may not recognize the path by consciously, but you're going to recognize it subconsciously by the way that path feels. And you're going to lean towards that. And sometimes you don't even know you're doing it, and you will get to that goal that much faster. Yeah, manifesting. Yeah. It's the science behind manifesting stuff. You know me, science nerd.
Although I think like even with an accountant, there's a ton of relevant skills, like being good with numbers. You can then go like
details, and
every designer I work with is like, I want to be better at quant data. So a better accountant would be great at that.
Yep. Bring your whole self, and not just the part you think you should put on the resume, but bring your whole self. I've taught, there's mentees that I've talked to who are family lawyers and now are in UX design. I'm like, okay, what kind of skills were you awesome at? And somehow you're going to use them. Bring your whole self. All right, Curran's got a question, and so politely raised his hand. Hello again, Curran.
Hey, what's happening, fam? All right, my question actually touches upon what we were just talking about the accountant into UX, like identifying and translating skills from one area that you were in to like the digital tech area. You know, many of us, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'm sure there are some people who did not come from a design background, who may have, you know, come from less reputable sort of careers, as they say. I will say I come from a background of restaurant hospitality as well, but I also have experience in design. So translating like restaurant hospitality, you know, front of house and back of house skills, along with intermingling all of my design, you know, experience, translating that into like the UX lens. You know, like worked in restaurants, worked in kitchens, I can collaborate, I can think quickly, talk about pivots, talk about doing back flips on a dime. You know,
I feel like you just answered your own question.
But like, I mean, all right, but like, I'm sure I'm answering it, but like, what, like, you know, what are some practices or some activities or some exercises to like help you identify that, like identify your own like skills, and then to begin to like translate them into like the UX lens?
Yeah.
Why don't you UX yourself and create?
You UX yourself.
And put together like a user journey of both. This is what my journey or day looks like as a UX designer. This is what my day journey looks like in hospitality. Where are the commonalities?
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, that would be a pretty weird Venn diagram. I don't think there'd be much. I mean, maybe there would be much overlap, but maybe I just have trouble seeing it because I've been in the restaurant shit for a while.
Or
Not
you
like
can
a while,
also-
but like,
you
know.
can also schedule a mentoring session and get an objective outside viewpoint. That's what mentors are really good at. It's providing you an objective outside viewpoint.
All right. Well, all right.
Yeah.
Mhm. Awesome. All right. Jarell, any additional questions?
Yeah, here's a really good one. Advice do you have for neurodivergent folks who are really challenged with the kinds of meta thinking you've kind of prescribed so far?
That's a good question. Several of my mentees have been neurodiverse. My best advice to you is to take it slow and involve a therapist, because your mentor is not a licensed therapist. Any kind of change is going to require smaller steps and granting yourself a little bit more grace. And I'll give you an example, and it's a bad example, I admit it, but I up till January, the story I told myself was that I sucked at math. And turns out there's a thing called math trauma. And telling myself over and over again that I suck at math prevented me from ever improving at math. But it took an objective outside viewpoint to point that out to me and understand that synesthesia had gotten in the way of me becoming having any kind of mastery at math. So involve a therapist and take baby steps. The smaller the steps, the more confidence you can build as you go. Hopefully that helps.
That's really great advice. Really great advice.
All right, what else?
Yeah. This could be the last one if no one has any last second questions, but what if you don't know where to start? I'm really interested in everything design related, but there's too much to learn and not enough time. How can you focus?
Boy, sure. The ADP list is sure getting a lot of traction today. I would say schedule something with a mentor. Andrew says book time with me. Yeah, somebody who's going to be able to walk you through that. That's one-on-one time, because your story is going to be different than anyone else's.
We also can see when I've seen my mentees, I see a lot in them that they don't.
Yeah, it's providing that objective outside viewpoint.
Yep. You see potential and you see yourself, you see your journey, and you make little links between them. And you're like, no. I think you do need to hear this. And you actually do, you can do this. I don't know why you're afraid of it.
Yeah.
And there is so many different ways to go about doing that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Andrew.
Boy, I just
Hello.
wanted to contribute to that a little bit. I think you really nailed it on the head, Cami, with that mentors are really good at that. And it's something that I think is a bit fresh in UX as well. And it's something for some of you guys to reflect on as well, is that the youth of UX is still today, as an industry, it's still very young. It's still defining itself clearly, and it's beginning to branch very deeply outside of tech now. And so we're starting to see the birth of new specializations, such as like UX strategy, which is essentially like business analytics plus UX in like one really tight package. So don't, if you, it's gonna kind of like play into the fears of, oh my God, there's so much to do, because there is so much to do, but it's all the same framework. It's all the same level of thinking, right? It's just an evolution of using that thought in new ways. So practice the framework and then look to new spaces where that can be used. And that's another way to look at your experience and develop that forward using the framework. So strategy, UX, think of it in that way. I don't normally self-plug, but this is literally something I love to do. So if you need help with it, I'm eagerly willing to help you guys with that, because this is my fucking jam.
Thank you, Andrew. That was awesome. Yay.
Yeah, I will attest to Andrew, because I've known this guy since I think September, and we've been pretty close knit in my community as well. And he's been through so many of our sessions, and so many people have gotten so many amazing words from him, and our discussions, we just go into depth. and it's just kind of like therapy session for other designers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Winona, thank you for putting his link in the chat. Awesome.
Sweet. Okay, we do have one more question, and then we'll have to end this, unfortunately. Any advice for entrepreneurial UX designers who want to earn a living creating their own business?
Talk to people on LinkedIn. Find people on LinkedIn who are doing what you want to do. That is my number one advice. There's, I'm going to put in the chat one more link. That is the two LinkedIn videos. If I can find it, good grief, there we go. That ADPList put out about networking on LinkedIn. And I have been on LinkedIn, I think, since its inception in, way back when. And I watched these two videos and I learned new stuff. So take a listen if you haven't. Some fantastic advice there on bridging the gap between knowing people who do what you want to do and not. Awesome.
That's awesome.
All right, guys, gals, and everything in between. Thank you. Thank you, Jarell, for hosting. Thank you, Irina, for your wisdom. I love seeing familiar faces here. Thank you, ADPList, first of all, for being here. Second of all, for creating this community that we can now call home. And good juju to everyone here. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Cami. Thank you so much, Irina. It was great seeing everyone. Good night, everyone, or good morning,
Bye.
or good afternoon, depending where you're from. Oh, no.
Absolutely. And thanks to all the ADP mentors who showed up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, awesome. All right. And I actually remembered to hit record.
Yay.
Yay.